Hello, hello, hello. Here we are, here we are, here we are. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here today for the first stream of our new series. Well, we don't have a name for this new series, by the way, Shive. What do you think we should call this? I call this the On Duty DevRel stream, which is an unofficial name. I guess we can run by that.
Yeah,
All
or
right.
hashtag learn with Couchbase DevRels.
Yes, learn with Couchbase DevRel. That's a good one. Pretty happy to be here today. We have 3 months of streaming plans. Lots of things coming up your way. We want to talk about. We want to celebrate the free tier. Couchbase is a new free tier. Everything free for developers, for your side hustle, for your side projects. We want to enable you to try as easily as possible Couchbase. We have new developers integration coming up. A lot of AI stuff, especially. We have Couchbase Shell. More on that later. Just follow our blogs, follow our social. You'll see more of this in the coming days. But in the coming minutes, we are going to talk about AI. And Shiva, you're also our local AI expert in DevRel team. And that's not true because Ben is also writing a book, but he will be on the next one, or maybe the other one. And you decided to talk about Vercel V0, Couchbase, Cloud, which is the Anthropic AI model, and Cursor, which is an IDE dedicated, well, not dedicated, but an AI-enabled IDE, which is
Yeah,
quite nice. I guess I should have said Claude because people have figured out by now that I'm
Claude.
French. So Claude. All right. First thing first, you got a blog post to show us, and then we'll dive right
Yes,
into
absolutely.
free tier.
So let
Let's go.
me go ahead and share the blog post. So of course, I'm personally super excited for a free tier because as we see that as a lot of companies are actually closing their free tier and going all out with just getting paid subscription plans, I think having a free tier is a blessing in disguise. And I think it just unlocks so many opportunities for indie developers and individual developers. And even if you are a viewer who is actually a Couchbase customer and you yourself actually work related to a product that uses Couchbase, now you can build your own personal projects with the help of the free tier. And this is an announcement blog post that goes over, first of all, why is a need for database as a platform, and specifically having a free tier, right? Because earlier we used to have a 30-day free trial, which is actually good for you to be able to get used to using Couchbase. But I feel with the free tier, you can build whatever application that you actually want and keep it ultimately hosted. So I guess like the only reason I didn't have my own blog till now hosted was that of course like I had to pay for it, but now I have complete freedom to host my own blog. I know Ben from our team already created a wonderful blog post around how do you build a vector search enabled powered blog platform where you can search for a blog post based on semantic meaning. And I have so many incredible ideas using our free tier now. So super excited for that.
Yeah, I think Ben is using Astro, which is a pretty famous, not a blog framework. It's not. It's a static site framework, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many JavaScript frameworks. Today we are going to be using Next.js, and I mean, there are so many that you can just use whatever you want. And the great thing about having a database as platform is that it is vendor neutral. So you can use it with any tech stack, given the fact that we have so many really nice SDKs as well in JavaScript, Python, Java, and then Golang. And I think like we are coming up with the Rust one as well. And .NET, of course. How to forget about .NET?
We are coming up with a Rust one. There was already a Rust one available. It was a wrapper on top of the C SDK, as is our Node and Ruby and Python SDK. This one we are building. This time we're building a native Rust SDK. It's open source. You can follow all the progress and you can contribute. It's on Couchbase Labs or
Yeah,
probably Couchbase Labs. GitHub.com/Couchbase Labs.
absolutely. I think, Laurent, like if you want to probably head directly into showing everyone live on how one can actually create a new cluster, and probably we can share some of the additional details on what are the things that one can actually do with the free tier. That'd be probably the next good step. So let me go ahead and present my entire screen so that it's easier for us to be able to cover this. Okay, perfect. So I mean, I already have an account on Capella, but I went ahead and created a new email ID that I'll use to sign up for Capella. But this is completely brand new, and hopefully this is great. And of course, like the first thing that you see directly, and again, I'm super proud for this, is that we have this try for free button, and if you click on it, you can see that we'll be redirected to sign up, and we'll have access to a free cluster. So I'll just quickly go ahead and sign up. uh, so let me add this new email that I just created. And I purposely kept the name as live stream because we are doing a live stream. So I'll just go ahead and sign up. This should be good to go. And Lauren, like, if you want to probably share some of the details around what can people expect to build with the free tier, that will probably also will be great. So let me go ahead.
Plenty of things, I guess. Like it's a feature. So what you're entitled to is a Couchbase one node cluster. You get data, you get search, you get index and query. So those are the most basic services that you will find in Couchbase. And if you get search, that means you also get vector search, which is a nice addition these days, especially if you want to build an AI-enabled application or an adaptive application. So we have that.
Exactly.
What can you build with this? Several things. You are on the okay. So Shiva, you just registered to your free tier, and now
Yep.
you can create a cluster.
Exactly.
Right.
And I mean, just this word, seeing a cluster for free, is that's what is the most exciting part. Because we have been like a lot of the community members wanted to experience this, and now finally having released this, like this is the pinnacle of being able to build for the community. Because of course, this unlocks the capability for so many developers, especially like students as well, who are just kind of getting started with databases and who probably don't have a credit card and can afford to get a paid tier. Like this is like the perfect recipe for them to be able to build whatever kind of application that they want. So super excited for that. And probably I can create a name for this. I'll create it. I'll just keep it live stream one, because we are creating this live stream. But I think like we can just keep it live stream. And here you can see that we can choose between the different cloud providers. So of course, like the rest of the experience, if you are familiar with Capella, is pretty much the same. But of course, in this case, you will get specific um, criteria in terms of the free tier. So, for instance, what you're getting is the indexing, querying, searching, and of course, like being able to manage your scopes and collections, and the disk size is 10 GB. So those are some of the things just to keep in mind. And you can choose your availability region and the CIDR block. And this should go ahead and create our cluster. Perfect. So I guess like while we are waiting for deploying our cluster, I think just in order to be cognizant of the time, we can also discuss about today's live stream and what we envision and plan to build. But also just a quick friendly reminder that if anyone is watching our stream, feel free to drop in your questions that you might have on our stream, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Again, this stream is really for us to come together and build really cool stuff that you can build with Couchbase. And again, it's a great learning opportunity for everyone, especially if you are just new to the AI space and you're exploring capabilities such as vector search, because that's what we are actually going to be leveraging in our application that we'll build over the course of this stream and the next stream. But yeah, I mean, just to touch upon the point that Laurent mentioned earlier, the main focus for us through the stream is to showcase that, of course, you can leverage Couchbase with some of the best GenAI tools. So if we talk about our vector search capability, it has integrations with LangChain, Llama Index, and of course with unstructured IO. So a bunch of different integrations that are there, and this, of course, just makes it very easy for you to be able to build GenAI applications. And if all of you have been there in the recent space, like if you have been active on Twitter or even just in general, you must have seen this entire craze around this combination. And I can probably do a quick Google search just around Claude and Cursor, because this kind of combination, what you'll see is that there are so many different videos where people are like saying that you can literally build anything in less than a few hours time with the combination of V0 and Claude and Cursor AI. So we'll of course break down what each of these tools are and how you can use these to build full stack SaaS applications with the help of Couchbase, and of course how these tools actually help you to write code faster. And again, like a friendly reminder that you of course these AI tools are not meant to replace the code that you're going to write. They, of course, like the main business logic is something that you'll still have to write yourself. Otherwise, you'll probably just spend hours and hours trying to debug the issues, because a lot of times there might be hallucinations. But of course, like these tools are definitely growing better. And ultimately, the combination of all of these, from all the way from prototyping your front end application and being able to write more complex logic and being able to automate certain tasks, that's where these tools are really coming to the foray. But yeah, I think Laurent, our cluster is ready now. That's amazing. So we can probably head over to our cluster and we can actually go ahead and create a new a new index, and of course like all of the things that you'll basically do. So creating a new scope and collection for our database. So in this case, we can probably go to our data tools and just create our cluster details. Perfect. Yeah. So of course, like whenever you create a new cluster, you always get a sample travel data. So this is our bucket. And then if we look over here, you'll be able to see all of the different collections that we have. But if you want to create your own, so you can create a new one as well. So probably for this live stream, we can create one. So this will be coming to use later when we actually go ahead and build out our application. But for now, pretty much what you will do in a regular Capella cluster, you can do all of those operations in this free tier as well. So we can just create our scope for now. I'll just call it, I guess, shared, and this can be docs. Because what we'll be doing is we will be building an application where you can actually upload a PDF file. And from that PDF file, you can use our vector search that's built into Couchbase and then interact with your docs. So the idea is that you would upload a PDF file, break it down into different chunks, and then store those chunks inside of Couchbase as documents. Then you'll create a vector index. And of course, when you store these chunks, you'd actually also then you'll use embeddings to actually convert them into the embeddings and store them inside of Couchbase. And then you'll create a vector index. From there, you can write vector search queries and append them to an LLM response to create a RAG based application. So that's what we'll try to build over the course of today's session and the next session. So today's session is more kind of getting started with the different tools that we're going to be using, and we'll be writing some amount of code. But of course, the bigger business logic for being able to create the entire app is something that we will continue over into the next session as well. So hopefully everyone should be able to follow along and set up all of the different tools that we'll cover in today's session. But yeah, I mean, I think this is great. We have our free tier cluster ready with our dedicated scopes and collections as well. So that's great. I mean, did you want to add something to that, Laurent? Or if you
No,
have
I
any
think that's so good.
questions, I
I mean,
guess. But
I'm excited. We
perfect.
don't have any question yet, so I
Mm.
think we can go on.
Okay.
We can show the rest of the getting started. I will just remove my camera and make some room for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
But
guess
I'm
like the
still here.
first thing that yeah, and the first thing that I also wanted to kind of touch upon is V0. So, of course, in this particular live stream, we want to touch upon three main things, and those are V0, which is essentially a tool by Vercel. And the idea behind this tool is that you can essentially prototype front end components very easily with the help of AI. So essentially, if you're not aware, Vercel is the company behind the Next.js project, which is one of the most popular frameworks for front end development, including React. So of course, it is based on React. And essentially, Vercel, what they did was that they took a bunch of Next.js code and, of course, code in other popular front end libraries. And this particular tool allows you to give a prompt and it will generate the UI component for you. And it provides you a chat section similar to something like ChatGPT, or of course, if you're using Capella, so you can use Capella IQ, which is our own Gen AI take on being able to auto generate entire SQL++ queries, or being able to give you some sample JSON documents based on your cluster configuration. So similarly, you can use this chat interface and just create off the fly components that you can directly import inside of your application. And that's really powerful because now you don't have to spend a lot of time prototyping. So if you are just willing to create some sample applications where you don't want to spend a lot of time working on design, this is a great tool for you to be able to build and prototype very quickly. And that's one of the reasons why people are leveraging V0 right now. And it's really part of this entire hype of being able to quickly prototype with the help of AI is the reason that what V0 is capable. So of course, like I'll not keep hanging, but let's actually go ahead and go straight into asking V0 on what we actually want to build. So what we want to build is a front end for a chat with PDF website. So we can give it a prompt such as build a front end for a chat with PDF website, where we will have two different sections, or probably two different windows. And on the left window, we will have two components. So what I'm thinking is on the left hand side, we should have in the upper section a place where you can actually upload your PDF file, and the lower section should be able to render the actual PDF document once you actually upload it. So I can say that we'll have two components, one on the top where we upload, so the PDF uploader section, and the lower bottom section would be the one where we essentially render or display the PDF. And the right hand side section should be the section. So right hand side section should be our section where we actually showcase the chat window. So we'll showcase the chat window. And this chat window will render all of the conversations that you'll have where you'll ask questions related to the PDF that we'll be showing. The chat window where you can chat with the PDF docs. So, of course, whenever you are writing prompts, the more descriptive that you make the prompt, the better. So here I can also actually give it some additional instructions that create, use the next, latest Next.js, Next.js version, and create the components in TypeScript. So create the components in TypeScript. And what you'll see is, of course, I need to sign into Vercel. So let me just Oh, I think we lost that particular prompt, but I do have the prompt copied. So let me first sign up, and we'll just give it the same component. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and quickly sign up on Vercel.
So while you're signing up, I have a
So
quick question. Do you think
yeah.
you could use an LLM to, or you could ask an LLM to give you a prompt to generate a website instead of writing that prompt already.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I think like we can definitely give it that. Give me a prompt to give to the LLM to generate. Yeah, absolutely. I think like that should be completely doable. In that case, you will probably give a prompt to, and we can probably try that out. Like when we look at Claude, we can probably ask Claude to generate a prompt for us. So of course we'll need. So I'll just quickly enter. Perfect. Okay, so I'll have to sign up, but this is raw. So this is for anyone who is signing up. Like these are things that you'll be required to do. But okay, so I think we are signed up. So now we should be able to use this.
Now, I know it
So
sounds
perfect.
annoying, but as a former cloud provider business owner, we are required legally to do this kind of stuff because people want to know who you are
Mhm.
most of the times. That's why we're bothering
Exactly.
you with addresses and telephone and all that stuff.
Yeah. And so what you see over here is that I just went ahead and I give the prompt that build a front end for us, where you have the left hand side window and the right hand side you can showcase. And what you see is that as you see right now, it's quickly prototyping this entire response and it's actually generating the code on the fly. So in a matter of just like 2 minutes or less than a minute, it has given you this entire front end component where you can see that we have this really good looking chat window. And then you can see that this is our section where you can render the actual PDF. And we have our uh, section for being able to actually interact with chat. And we can also have a look at the code. So one thing that you'll also see is that a lot of these components do come from Shade UI. So in case you're not aware, it's actually one of the most popular component libraries built specifically for Next.js. And the way that this essentially works is that these are ready to use components that you can directly import inside of your React or Next.js application. And that's what is actually being used by V0 in order to be able to import them and use them inside of your application. So a lot of this code that is getting generated is following the latest practices for Next.js and based on the latest documentation from Next.js. So as you might be aware that a lot of the popular large language models, they do have a limitation when it comes to the time till when they have been trained. So if you look at something like a GPT-3 model that has a training, I think it's limited to 2021. But if you look at one of the latest models like GPT-4o, that's trained till January 2023 or 24, and like Claude is even it has been trained up till more recent data. So the great thing about like why one should perhaps use V0 is that it will always have the latest changes that are there and the latest features that are being introduced inside of Next.js as compared to like, so you could technically give the similar kind of prompt to ChatGPT or even Claude, and it will be able to give you a decent response. But some of the things that it might be using might actually be a bit older. So that's the reason why you might want to do this prototyping on V0 as compared to using something like ChatGPT or even Claude. But yeah, I mean, the great thing is that it has given us this particular code, and essentially, once we actually start to scaffold our project, the only thing that we have to do is run this particular command, which you see npx shadecn add, and this entire command that we will write to in order to include all of the different files. So essentially, this is, you can think of this chat with PDF as our main component file, but then we have all of these different UI components which are actually getting imported into this main chat with PDF component, and it will automatically also install and add all of those particular files inside of our code base, which we'll just start shortly. So that's the first part. Laura, if you wanted to probably add something, add something to it. Otherwise, I think we can proceed further.
No, I don't think I have any questions, and I don't think we have any questions, so I can proceed.
All right, perfect. So the next thing that I also want to do then quickly introduce is Cursor. So Cursor, for those folks who are not aware, it is so it's actually cursor.com. They recently changed their domain name, so it is cursor.com. So for those folks who are not aware, so essentially, Cursor is an AI code editor, which is of course, as you might know, that VS Code is open source. So it is a fork of VS Code, but with a lot of native AI capabilities built in. So it comes with auto completion, an AI chat window where you can add context of your entire file, of your folder, of your entire code base. And it has support for a lot of the different popular large language models like Claude 3.5, GPT-4o, GPT-4. And the Cursor team has also actually trained the code editor with a lot of inbuilt AI capabilities. And there is this really new feature which is called the Cursor composition, where essentially it can you can give it a bigger prompt and it can generate multiple files at a time, and then you can apply those files. So if you are working or dealing with multiple files, it's one of these experimental features where it's not just like updating one file at a time. It has the capability of being able to change multiple files. So if you're working on larger chains and you want the AI to work and give you multiple changes, it's something that you can actually do. Now, of course, one thing to keep in mind is that it is free to download, but it does have a paid subscription. And if you're signing up newly, you get a certain amount of credits. But of course, you can use this particular tool. You will still get like the inbuilt auto completion capability, and that's like one of the reasons where people are really loving the combination of using Cursor with Claude 3.5 Sonnet model, which is one of the best models right now for being able to write code. So, of course, again, a friendly disclaimer that you shouldn't rely on AI to write the entire code for you. I think like where it is really helpful is when you're writing certain amount of code yourself, and then you just want it to quickly comment out certain parts of your code, or perhaps indent it, or add some JS docs, or perhaps just refactor a code. Or if you are trying to just quickly fix a bug, you can ask it or request it, or probably write unit tests. So again, like the main code logic is something that you'll still be writing, and these tools are mainly just to help you. And that's where you see the speed, that instead of like wasting a lot of time on writing UI components, you can just get them off the fly. And then in this case of using something like Claude, you can give it specific prompts for it to be able to accomplish certain tasks, which you'll see that as you will use it for building our own application throughout this live stream and the next one. So you can just quickly sign in. Again, I'll just quickly sign up for Cursor, and I'll be using this. So let me go ahead and quickly sign up over here.
So
And
while
in
you
the
say,
meantime, if
I have a quick question.
yeah, no,
Do you you get token when you subscribe to Cursor? So I'm assuming they use some model. Can you use a local model as well? Can you bring your own model? Can
so
you?
yeah, I think there is no native support for being able to bring in your own local model. But of course, since there are tools like Olama which allow you to run any model, I know that there is this one project called Open Router, which essentially is an interface which allows you to bring your own model inside of, and it has, of course, it has capabilities attached with Olamas, which allows you to bring any local large language model. And I was reading a article which allows Open Router to be connected with Cursor AI. I think that essentially allows you to be able to like run local models uh, inside of Cursor. I haven't tried it myself, but that's definitely like a possibility. But it's not a native feature, so of course you'll have to rely on external integrations, or perhaps VS Code extension. And that's actually one of the things to keep in mind, that since Cursor is a clone of VS Code, so in fact, even the Couchbase VS Code extension will work perfectly perfectly fine inside of our cluster. So basically, whatever VS Code extension that you use, it will work natively inside of Cursor. And when you are migrating, let's say if you're migrating away from VS Code to Cursor, there are dedicated instructions that allow you to copy over all of your configuration that you had in VS Code, including your themes and your extensions that will automatically get installed when you install Cursor. So it gives you that option during the onboarding. So once you have set up your account,
That's
you can
nice.
just download and you can walk through the steps. But yeah, I think like just to kind of give a quick overview of how that kind of looks. So once you actually install Cursor, I've just created this new setup. So I'll just go ahead and use cursor dot, and this will open up a brand new window for me. So let me perhaps actually go back, and I'll just create a new folder over here. I'll just call it live stream new, and I'll just go ahead and navigate to this live stream new. And let me open up a cursor window. Okay, perfect. So I have this cursor window over here. Let me bring it. Okay, perfect. So now what you'll see is that pretty much a lot of the UI components is the experience is pretty similar to VS Code. You'll be able to see all of the different VS Code extensions that you can install. You can also install the Couchbase extension, so that you'll find in the marketplace. So here we can go ahead and install our Couchbase connection, and we'll actually try to connect to our free tier cluster that we have just created. Because the great thing about the VS Code extension for Couchbase is that you can actually view your documents. There is a dedicated workbench where you can actually write and run queries, and there is inbuilt support for um, being able to use Capella IQ. So if you're iterating over your application, you have that built in inside of the VS Code extension. So that's like one of the great things about the extension. So this is our extension. So you can see that you can connect to Capella, you can sign into Capella, and you can add a new connection string. So we can probably come back to this later. But the main thing that, of course, I wanted to quickly touch upon within Cursor is this chat interface. So what you see over here is that, of course, like I already had Cursor installed. What I'll do is I will simply log out, and I will log in again to my Cursor account. So let me go ahead and log in over here. So once you install, you can actually sign into your Cursor account that you have just used. So in this case, let me put this over here, and let me go ahead and sign in. So I think we should have been able to sign in. Okay. It probably signed into my other account, but let me, okay, perfect. So now I'm signed in with my new account that I've just created. And what you see over here is that I think like since Laurent, you were asking what are the different models. So these are all of the different models that are there. But as you see, right, that we have this configuration of either being able to add OpenAI models or open router models. So if you want to add our own custom models, that's one way. But of course, like there are VS Code extensions which allow you to interface and add even more local models with the support of Olama. But if you want, you can add your own OpenAI or Anthropic or Google Gemini keys. And yeah, I mean, that's a quick overview of the settings. But the thing that is why people are really excited for being able to use a Cursor is the fact that we have this inbuilt AI chat window, which essentially allows you to choose between the different models. And the combination that is growing really, that's really in the craze right now is this combination of using Cursor with the Claude 3.5 LLM model. And here, what you'll see is that when you install Cursor, you essentially get 500 requests for being able to use these premium models. So I think like that's good enough for you to be able to use it for at least like a good week, and you can try it out yourself by prototyping your own application that you might want to build. So I think like that's a good starting point for us to perhaps now see the magic of the V0. So in that case, what we will do is we will prototype a new Next.js application. So in that case, I will go ahead and create a new Next.js application from scratch. So for being able to do that, you just have to do npx create next app. And yeah, in the meantime, by the way, is there any question that we have had so far, Laurent? Or if you wanted to probably add something?
We don't have any question right now. I thought about something, but that escaped me. Yeah, no, I guess you could self-host. Well, I said it's a good question actually. If I self-host a compatible model with OpenAI, because there's a bunch of model that can be hidden behind an API that looks like OpenAI API, but that means you need to change the URL
Yeah.
as well, not just the token. So I wonder if that's doable.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can probably explore in the next live stream because personally, I haven't really explored
Some
that
tuning.
part of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think back over here, so we can go ahead and use TypeScript and we'll just follow all of these defaults. And this should very quickly help us to prototype our application right over here. And while it's doing that, I think like it has already generated or scaffolded most of our project. So this should be good to go. And we'll just go ahead and run this quickly to see if it is working fine. Perfect. I'll have to go to the actual directory and then run this. So let's navigate to our localhost 3000. That's our sample Next.js application. Perfect. Now, this is where we'll go back to our V0. And let's say if we want to actually render the same component design that we have gotten in order to actually get inside of our local application, we just have to follow this particular command, which is add to codebase. And by the way, like one thing to keep in mind is that you can actually, if you don't like the first iteration of this particular project, we can give it follow-up prompt. So Laurent, like, did you have any idea perhaps if we should add something to it, perhaps like a header with something like chat with PDF with powered by Couchbase vector search, or probably a bottom banner, like that's up to our imagination for us to be able to tweak around with this UI design.
Well, I mean, I guess we can do the full credits. You know, when you go to websites and it says like proudly supported by, and you get all the things that you use to build a website. I mean, you could probably ask this, like, what are the, like a small credit line or the framework that have been used to create this. So I guess it's going to be aware of some things, and it's not going to be aware of some things. It's going to be aware of Next.js because you asked for it. It's going to be aware of Tailwind and stuff like this, but it's not going to be aware about itself, probably.
And we can probably try that. So that is, yeah. So I can say add a new component, probably a footer component. So we can say add a new footer component in the probably in the end, in the bottom, mentioning the credits for the framework used and Couchbase V0 Vercel, and I guess the last thing we are remaining is cursor. So let's see how that looks. So as you see, like now what it will do is that it will build on top of this particular component that it actually just created. So it will iterate over that, and we should be able to see that in action. And the great thing is like a great thing to also learn from something like this is that it's a great learning tool. So if you're just new to UI development and you can literally just use this particular tool for learning that, let's say you don't know how to build, let's say a bootstrap grid or a tailwind component. So this is a great way for you to be able to actually interact and learn because you see that how it is proactively prototyping it in front of you and writing that particular code logic. So now you see that we have this powered by, and I think like, yeah, it didn't really perhaps understand that particular term that we gave to it, like the framework that we used. So ideally, it should have said like Next.js or Shade CN, but that's all right. But yeah, I mean, this is the beauty of like being able to use this particular tool. So what you also see is you have different versions. So if you want to navigate and check between the different versioning, so you get versioning based on the subsequent prompts that you're sending over. And we can actually try this out as well. I can go ahead and upload a sample document over here, probably the stock. So you can see right now, of course, it's not rendering. So perhaps we can give it a subsequent prompt that actually render that particular PDF, for which we'll most likely have to use something like a React PDF library from npm, and that will help us to actually render that PDF once you have installed or once you have uploaded your PDF file. But of course, you can go as deep into the conversation as possible. But I think like this should be good enough for us to start the prototype. So in order to actually incorporate this in our code base, just use this add to code base option. And I'll probably just close this application now. And we can go ahead and just run this particular command. And again, it will give us certain prompts. So we can just go ahead and follow these along. It just gives us some additional details on what is the styling, specifically in this case, like it's using Tailwind. So if you want to generate all of those, and hopefully within the next few, in a matter of a few seconds, we should have all of our dependencies and all of those components that it generated. And those should be there in our source directory. So yeah, there you go. Like within a matter of a few seconds, we have our newly created components directory. And in this, you have the main components of file, which is our chat with PDF component. And we have all of the other relevant UI components for our input, scroll area, button. And of course, this is just the first iteration. If you wish to break down your chat with PDF into other sections, perhaps you want essentially the PDF uploader to be a separate component, and your renderer, so the PDF viewer, to be a separate component, and then your chat interface to be a separate component. This is where now you can actually ask the LLM inside of Cursor to be able to actually do that. So we can first try to just see that how do we now incorporate this into our application, and then we can probably try to clean this particular code a bit further by asking the LLM to divide this into further components, and just think of this chat with PDF as our parent component, which is then importing each of these individual components, because that will make it a bit more easier for us to maintain our application, as we will then incorporate Couchbase later in the next stream. So in order to do that, we have our app over here, our page.tsx. So I think all of this is perhaps not required. So I can simply go ahead and remove this footer and the main section and just directly go ahead and import. Now what you're seeing is this auto completion. So this is directly as part of Cursor. So there is an natively inbuilt autocomplete. And you see that since we have not imported this particular component right now, it automatically gives us a suggestion that we should import that particular component. And I think like we are getting this error. So, and now what you see is that since we are getting this error, we can ask this AI fix in chat, where what it's doing is that it's passing on that error to our chat interface that's built inside of our Cursor ID, and this is using Claude 3.5, which of course is one of the best. So it's just asking us to change the import statement, and so let's go ahead and change this based on the suggestion given to us. And let's also just cross check that the component is actually exported. So it feels like we didn't actually do that. So let's just, oh yeah, we actually have that. So the component is actually chat with PDF. So I think that might have been the reason. So we can probably change this to chat with PDF. Hopefully that should resolve the issue. Perfect. So that is good enough. And if we just go ahead and rerun our app, we should see the component getting rendered. So if I refresh, okay. Yeah, so you see that the UI is probably getting a bit messed up. So we can perhaps remove a lot of these different these tailwind configs and probably just give it a simple font sans. And hopefully if I refresh, yeah, perfect. So we have just incorporated that same code that we generated with the help of the V0. And now we have it up and running inside of our Next.js application. And what you saw was that I gave it a prompt. It generated that particular code in a matter of 2 minutes, and then importing inside of my actual Next.js project took again technically less than 2 to 3 minutes. And that's how quickly you can actually prototype. Now, of course, the drawback, and we'll be real, right? That AI is not perfect. The the drawback, or not necessarily the drawback, but something to just keep in mind is that you cannot just like blindly follow everything. You still need to be aware that how the component is actually functional. And of course you get that information when you are interacting with the V0. So it actually does give you information on how this entire component actually works. So you know that there's a left panel with the PDF uploader. So when you are actually looking at your code base, you can see that, for instance, we have this div, which is our left panel, and it has the component. And of course, right now it's just a static front-end component. It's not really doing much. Of course, it does give you some amount of functionality, which is it does give you a function where you can actually handle the file upload, but then and then it allows you to actually set that inside of your use state. So in this case, it will be inside the memory. So if you're calling it somewhere else, you can use that state to set the PDF file and then use it elsewhere inside of your Next.js application. So it is doing all of those things for you, but still the core of your business logic is something that we will be writing, in today's session and the next live stream that we'll have next week. So just something to be mindful of, right? When
Right, because
you use these particular.
I was going to ask about this because we have 13 minutes left on the stream. So where do you want to go for those next 13 minutes?
Yeah, I think what we can do, Laurent, is perhaps just quickly showcase how you can connect to a Couchbase
Yes.
Capella cluster, and then we will just write a small code which allows you to actually connect to your Couchbase cluster inside of our Next.js app with the help of our Node SDK, our JavaScript SDK. So I think like we can definitely probably spend the last remaining time talking about that. So we spent a large amount of time talking about this entire UI. But of course, what you see is that this is how you use AI, right? If you face an error, you want to not waste your time going into Google and trying to find Stack Overflow links. Of course, like that's how you just become a bit more productive when it comes to be able to use AI in the proper manner, like giving it proper prompts. So I think in the last remaining section for today's session, we can go and explore our Couchbase extension because it is the VS Code extension, and we have a lot of different videos available. But if you are new to Couchbase, this is typically one of the ways that you will interact. So you can always go and use Capella. And let me go ahead and actually sign in again because we'll be requiring to generate our database credentials inside of Couchbase in order to incorporate it inside of our application. So let's go into our database. And now in order for, of course, to be able to connect to it remotely, we need to do a couple of things. So we need to go to our connect section. And here, you'll find, of course, the information on how to actually connect to it. So in this case, you'll first have to create your database credentials. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So I'll go ahead and create our credential over here. So I'll keep the name as, and then I'll give it a username. Perfect. And then, of course, I want to basically give it access to our cluster that we just created, and probably both read and write. And I can delete this, and hopefully this should be fine, right? Let's see. Is it because I need to use a special character, or I'm missing
Yeah,
something?
you do. You do. You need to use a special character. You
Oh,
need to
eight
make
plus
sure
characters.
you select buckets or several.
Yeah, I think all buckets, perfect. So all scopes should be fine, and probably for now I can just okay, perfect.
Oh, you still have, yeah.
Perfect. All right.
All
So
good.
we have our credentials created. And the only one thing to also keep in mind is that, of course, if you want to be able to connect to this cluster from any IP address, like the only thing you have to go is go to the networking sections and add the allowed IP addresses. So if you want access from anywhere, you have to use the IPs. So this will allow you access from anywhere that you want. But of course, you have the restriction on if you only want the cluster to be able to connect it from certain IP addresses. So for just for the demonstration of this tutorial, we'll just use anywhere. So in this case, what you'll see is that now in order to connect to our cluster, we have our credentials that we have just created. This is our public connection string, which will allow you to specify which is what specific Capella cluster you actually want to connect to. And you can use your favorite SDK. So in this case, we will be using the Node.js SDK. And you can see some code snippet which allows you to be able to connect to your application. So in this case, if you want to connect to Couchbase, I think we can go ahead and use this. So in this case, we will go to our connection string. And I think later on, like in this case, we'll use secure connection. Perfect. And then I will give it my credentials over here. So perfect. And then if I connection name, so I can probably give it, hopefully this should be fine. So what it's trying to do right now is that it's connecting to the cluster. And as you saw that now we have the cluster over here. And you can also sign in to Capella directly using over here. But this will, of course, will sign you out of but one thing to, of course, keep in mind is that if you want to use Capella IQ, you have to enable it inside of your settings, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, you need to
So probably
accept the terms and condition, because this is it's a
exactly.
little specific.
Yeah,
Full transparency, we're using OpenAI behind Couchbase IQ, so you need to make sure that you're okay with that as part of the why there is terms and condition.
yeah.
So yeah,
And
that's the VS Code extension.
yeah. And probably you can touch upon the Capella IQ part in the next session because we are
Yeah,
running out of time. And in order to make this a bit more productive, we can touch upon that now. How do you connect to a database cluster, right? So that's the question. So in this case, the first thing that you will have to do is you'll have to use npm install Couchbase. So that's the in order to install the Node.js SDK for Couchbase. And while this is happening, sorry, Lauren, I think you were also saying something in between.
no, I think that's fine. No worries. Let's go.
Oh, perfect. All right. So what we'll do is that now, in order to actually implement this inside of our application, let's go and actually create a lib folder. So we will create that inside over here. And this lib folder is where we will create a new file for Couchbase connection. So this is our file. And this is where we'll now start to actually define the program or the logic for being able to successfully connect to our Couchbase cluster. And in that case, we will also actually need environment variables to securely store. So I'll just also go ahead and create an env and an env dot example because we'll be pushing this code. So of course, I'll not be pushing my actual .env file, but this is where we'll define all of our different files. And in this case, like we can give it a few of them. So for example, db connection URL. So the ones that you'll basically need are, or the string, so DB connection string. So the ones that you'll basically need are your DB connection string and your username password. So in this case, we'll use a DB username, DB password, and then in order to further connect to the specific bucket, you'll need to define your DB bucket, and then you need the scope. So the scope and the collection. So in this case, it automatically filled it for us, but we'll have to, fill it with our own example. So let me just copy this over and add over here. And later on, we will replace it with the credentials that we saw that we used in order to connect to our Couchbase cluster inside of our VS Code extension. The same credentials will be used over here in order to successfully connect to our database cluster. So in order to now start building our application, so essentially what we need over here is the first import from our VS Code extension is, or from our SDKs. So we have to basically import cluster, and the other thing that we can also import is connect. So this is a method which will allow us to basically pass on our connection string, our username, password, and authenticate using the username and password, and successfully try to connect to the cluster using our SDK. So that's our first import statement. Now we can go ahead and define an async function, let's say connect to a Couchbase. So here, essentially what we want is our connection string. So we will get that, or we'll fetch that from our environment file that we have created, and our database username and our database password. And then we will just, we can define certain, for error handling, we can define methods to see whether there is actually the database username that actually exists. So in this case, I'll just quickly go ahead and define the const connection string. For that, we will need our environment for connection string, and then we can define it for our username. So we can probably just import all of these. I don't need all of these as well. And once we have imported, we can go ahead and now actually start to just that if our connection string username and password don't exist, so we can just throw an error that you are either missing out of these. And then now we can define our actual cluster. And this is where now essentially what we want to do is that we will use our connect method from the SDK. And here we'll basically pass our connection string. And also in order to authenticate, we'll pass our username, password. And it also has a dedicated object called as the config object, which is just like based on what kind of development you're doing. So in this case, we will go ahead. And as you see that in this scenario, since this autocomplete functionality from from Cursor is fairly up to date, it does, like I haven't actually trained it over Couchbase, but it is still being able to give me somewhat correct representation of the auto completion. Of course, I'm not strictly relying on it. I still should know the core logic, but of course, it just helps us to prototype quickly. So in this case, I'll still need to await for the connection, and I don't need probably all of this over here. But what I do need is our username and password, and what we'll basically pass over here is our function name that we just passed. So our username and the password that we'll send is password. And an additional thing that you can probably add is a config profile. So in this case, you can probably keep it default. And finally, what you can do is that you can actually return the cluster details, and then we can close out our project over here. So this is essentially just the main point that we are basically trying to convey, which is that in order to successfully connect to your database cluster, this is essentially the main thing that you'll need. And now, like we will, once you have successfully been able to connect to cluster, in the next session, we'll see that now how do you interface being able to connect to your database cluster and build out the actual business logic of our application, which is writing the logic for uploading a PDF file, and then being able to use our LangChain integration. So something just keep in mind is what we'll basically cover is our LangChain integration with a Couchbase, where you basically upload any PDF file. We have something known as our vector store, which essentially is able to chunk your file. And then this vector store, with that vector store, you can add embeddings. You can use your embeddings of your choice, and that will help you to generate the embeddings for your database chunks that get created. And then we will store them inside of Couchbase. So we'll look over the methods on how we store documents inside of Couchbase, and then how do we retrieve them when you're using a RAG application. So that's where your capability of like the SQL++ query for which, and then of course, like how do you create your vector index. So all of those will be covered in the next session, which will be much more hands-on, but we will pretty much be working on top of what we had today, which is we just quickly did a quick prototype of our UI, and now we will connect this UI to our the core business logic for being able to talk to your PDF files with the help of the vector search from Couchbase.
All right, Masha Shiva, thank you so much for showing all of this. So yeah, same time next week. So that's what, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, 10 a.m. New York time, 7 a.m. if you're in San Francisco. It was 4 p.m. in France, and for Shiva it was what, 9:30.
So now it's 8:30 p.m.
All right. All right. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining the stream. There was a lot of you on Twitter. Just don't hesitate to answer to that tweet. Tell us what you thought about this. Tell us if you want to see something specific. Just we're all looking for your feedback. We want to know if you're happy about what you saw. If you want something else, just let us know. And hopefully we'll see all of you next week, same time. Take care. Bye bye. Salut.
Absolutely.